Am I the only one that does this? I literally can't play without this feature being turned on, but why does it feel like I'm in such a small minority who actually likes the 3D feature of the 3DS? You see a lot of content on YouTube talking about the 3DS and saying turn it off immediately, but where is the support to say turn it on? Today, I'm here to share my experience with the 3D feature and convince you to turn your slider up. Quick disclaimer, if you get eye strain or headaches from 3D, this video isn't trying to change your mind. I'm aiming this for people who don't experience this and still don't try or use the 3D feature, or choose to purchase the 2DS line for anything other than the price. This is my opportunity to tell you why the 3D feature is so important, underrated, and needs to be experienced. Firstly, glasses-free 3D is an amazing concept in itself. It's the ability to see a 3D image without the need to wear any glasses or use additional head or eye gear. I feel this is why 3D TVs came and they went. I don't want to have to put glasses on when viewing 3D content on my couch. This concept never gelled with me and seems so involved. This was also a time before VR headsets and other AR products became more mainstream, and for these reasons, maybe that's why it was kept to a niche and mainly experienced in the cinema. But I did love the 3D effect you did experience regardless, if only you could experience it in a more casual way without having to put on glasses or any other headgear. In comes the 3DS. In 2011, Nintendo executed on this glasses-free 3D concept by releasing the 3DS console. It's good to note, this is not the first time glasses-free 3D was ever done, but the first time it was applied maybe in this concept. At the time, launch sales didn't really reflect this though, even though it was a transformative feature, first time it was ever done. Both the console and the feature broadly received mixed reception. Some loved it and some called it a gimmick and saying that it wasn't really well implemented, in addition to the console price being too high, which was really the main point of concern here. So we know what the story is. Following these events, Nintendo put in aggressive price cuts and apologized to fans for the launch. And then the system actually took off. In modern day, the 3DS is lauded as the pinnacle of clamshell design handheld consoles and other features, but the 3D feature is never talked about enough, especially for how transformative it was at the time. So upon booting the console up, you can experience a stereoscopic 3D image by moving the 3DS slider up and down on the right side of the top screen. Leaving it at the bottom gives you no 3D effect. And as you progress the slider along the track, you can see the depth of the 3D effect increasing until it reaches its maximum point, and it's really popping out of the screen. You can see it especially as you browse through the 3DS apps, and you can see it for yourself. It's something that's so cool and immediately starts to draw you in no matter what you're looking at. When I first used the 3DS, I was immediately blown away with the quality and believability of the 3D. The image went from a flat, lower resolution image to a sharper image with a pop, all from the flick of my slider. I'd always associated 3D with glasses in a cinema and a fully focused experience, so when just using the console without this, I was wowed and really drawn to engage with the 3DS. The objects on the screen that I was seeing genuinely gave you the effect of it being in your environment. I would sometimes just sit on the activity log app from the home menu and watch the pencil rotate around the notepad, or the Nintendo eShop bags and font just pop out from my background theme, or even the AR games Kart and Boxcar, I don't know what else to call him. He would pop out and act all animated on screen. These are smaller details and effects I would have never noticed or really cared for at all in 2D. The reason for this feeling of immersion is that the 3D effect creates a sense of depth by tricking our brains into perceiving a three-dimensional space. This gives us the illusion of objects appearing to have volume and distance away from us. How the 3DS pulls this off is using something called a parallax barrier, which what I've now learned about. As you can see in this image, what it does is it blocks part of the image for both the left and the right eye. Each eye sees a slightly different image, and then it combines it to create an illusion of a 3D image overall. The original 3DS required you to keep your head in a very specific spot for the effect to work, an inconvenience which was later resolved with the new 3DS line, but I'll talk about that after. But today, the effect is extremely engaging and really adds to the experience of games that do have it implemented. So, how does it play? I booted up my first game, Kirby Planet Robobot, and sliding that effect up and down, I could tell immediately this was something I was going to continue to use. When playing Kirby, it isn't a requirement to play in 3D. Not many games had this as a must-use feature, but it most definitely added to my experience and turned an ordinary image into one that engaged me and looked a lot sharper to my eyes. What intrigues you initially is the areas you can get to on a separate platform in the background. Using the 3D image, you can see a difference between the foreground and the background really stands out when you're controlling in the foreground. Also too, with the way some of the levels are designed with its intricate pipes, the walls, walls, the chained fences in the foreground and the background, it creates a much more alive image than when you swap to 2D. For example, in this level here that I'm showing you with the pipes and lasers on screen, it really gives you a sense of place in the level. Like, you can judge where the laser is in comparison to Kirby, and actually feels like Kirby's walking under or behind a wall or a pipe in the level. Before I go on to the next game, I want to talk a little bit around the resolution and the clarity bump. So it's another thing that I noticed when playing in 3D, the whole image seems sharper and less blurry. I didn't know what it was until I investigated what was actually happening behind the scenes, because going back and forth, it's really obvious. Turning it on composes the image a lot better to my eyes and sharpens up all the elements from the UI to the assets. The way it apparently works is because in 3D, each eye is seeing a 240 by 400 image. You're essentially looking at a 240 by 800 image combined together. So I can definitely tell the difference and feel that this resolution bump brings it a bit closer to modern standards and creates a very unique effect. It definitely does look better. Looking forward to the Nintendo Switch and seeing could this be achieved in this modern day, perhaps this is why they couldn't implement this feature on the Switch. The 3DS was already working with an abysmally low 240p resolution, though admittedly it doesn't look too bad on the screen, it is small, so it already didn't need to push that many pixels. So stretching this effort to increase the vertical pixel resolution to 800 from 400 perhaps could still be achieved. Whereas then with the Switch, we already experienced quite poor performance in some games with the 720p native handheld target, and often we saw lower resolutions internally as a result, and it really struggling to hit 720p. So if the Switch had to output twice the resolution vertically like the 3DS does using the same method to achieve the same 3D effect, I don't think this would have worked. Otherwise, I think Nintendo would have to make a lower resolution screen as a solution. I think this is a major barrier to this technology being implemented again in a new console like this. I know there's monitors at the moment doing glasses-free 3D as well, so I'm going to take a look at those in a bit and see exactly what's happening behind the scenes, and maybe it could actually work nowadays. So back to the games. Mario Kart 7. This game really pops with the 3D effect on. It makes everything more clear. Like, your character is now in focus, the UI is clearer to read, and everything comes alive. Everything from the coins, the shells, and other items on the road take a life of their own. You almost get a texture resolution bump at times. When you have black ink sprayed on your screen, for example, from a blue, it feels like it's popping out at you. The lens flare is much more pronounced, and other races will appear in your field of view convincingly. But then, when you receive a blue bomb, the whole experience is even more painful in 3D. The whole track experience is much more livelier versus when you have it off, which feels a bit closer to a Mario Kart DS experience if I'm being honest. And it may be due to the bump in resolution you receive when turning the 3D on, which I just explained earlier. The next one was Super Mario 3D Land, and this is the most impressive of the lot so far. The way everything just pops out and comes to life is transformative. Sliding the 3D off and on is almost a night and day difference in the way it engages you. Sure, in 2D, it's fine and you'd still have an enjoyable time, but the 3D adds so much to the composition of the image. Obstacles, camera angles, and the depth of field is so enhanced with the 3D on, it's really a disservice having it off. There's certain sections where the game will pan to a view below or above Mario, a usually simple angle, but this gives you feedback to where you need to go or to jump. Or when you enter a new level and need to run to something in the background, it adds so much depth to the image when you can see just how each element fits in the level. It looks amazing. This whole game was designed with 3D in mind, and it goes to show, but unfortunately I think Nintendo more and more so shied away from this feature further into its life cycle, which is puzzling, because Super Mario 3D Land is honestly one of the best implementations of the 3D on the 3DS. Perhaps the poor reception of the original 3DS did already too much damage and was too little too late by the time that the new 3DS model was released. I'll expand on that a little bit later. But first I wanted to touch on the color bump. I'm a big fan of this one. Another reason to turn your 3D slider up is the color and brightness bump you receive when doing so. If you compare the 2D to the 3D image, the 3D is another notch brighter and more vivid than the 2D picture. So what I found is the console actually has to double the brightness due to the parallax barrier, which is actually what creates a 3D effect, blocking some of the light from the top screen. What you end up with is a slightly brighter and more vivid screen. I'm unsure though if the color profile changes just due to the brightness lift or there's something else weird going on with the parallax barrier and my eyes, but there's a noticeable change to vibrancy with it on. So, as I alluded to earlier, I think one of the core reasons for the dislike and hate the 3D unfortunately received is due to its implementation on the original 3DS, which admittedly isn't amazing. The original 3DS's 3D implementation was quite good if you kept within its sweet spot. The sweet spot is really specific. It requires you to be pretty dead straight on with the console, and sometimes allows you to move your head just very slightly. The 3D image could shift multiple times with a small head movement, which depending on how you play could really annoy you. For me, and the way that I play, I didn't run into too many issues as I play pretty still and always upright. But if you're the type that likes to slouch or lie down, which sometimes means you move and shift to be comfortable, you're gonna have a hard time experiencing a consistent 3D image, which could be really annoying. Luckily, for those of us who can't sit still and may play a little bit unorthodox, there is a solution: the new 3DS. Nintendo added new head tracking intelligence in the console, which makes use of also a new camera sensor, and it greatly expands this sweet spot for the 3D effect to consistently work. It's really night and day. It's not even a contest between the original 3DS and new 3DS. On the original 3DS, you almost find yourself sometimes only sliding the 3DS slider maybe low to midway, whereas on the new 3DS you can pretty much max it out all the way. You can slide it up all the way and it keeps a consistent, stable 3D image, which is amazing. But as I alluded to earlier, I think this is a bit too late into the life cycle of the 3DS. By the time the new 3DS came out, I think it was 2014 or 2015, it had already been out for a couple years and might have already had a greater impact on the audience in terms of their reception of the 3D feature. The new 3DS definitely is the best implementation that we've had, and now it seems glasses-free 3D is actually making a comeback in the modern day market. When doing research for this video, I actually came across quite a bit of a niche in the 3D stereo community and actually saw that Samsung is bringing out a brand new 3D monitor, glasses-free, finally implementing it in a way that is similar to the 3DS. Whereas it's glasses-free, uses camera technology to actually track your eyes really well. And this actually makes me want to buy one, to be honest, so I might in a future video actually try and test this out. Overall though, the 3D feature is so underrated, it's not even funny. I don't know why this isn't spoken enough. The 3D feature is the most unique thing on the market at the moment. In an age where we've already maxed out our graphics, we've got 4K, OLED, 165, 200, 300, 400 Hz, HDR, we're reaching a ceiling in technology, but really, the most untapped, I feel like, in terms of its potential, is 3D. We had 3D TVs, but you have to wear glasses. We had the 3DS, but by the end of its life, finally it was fixed, but early on it wasn't that great. And no one's really done glasses-free 3D that well. It's still a very small niche, but has so much potential.